Okay, ladies and gents, we are having a couple of lighting issues on this side here, but we are live today. I hope you are all doing well. We're going to go straight to the shared screen here and look at this public outrage that's going on. Some news outlets are saying up to 500,000 people on the street in Israel at the moment. There's a huge protest taking place, actually. Let me just check all the lighting here. Okay, so we're good. We're good. So Israeli protest union calls strike after 6 more captives held in Gaza. We've got these massive demonstrators at the moment. This is absolutely huge. We've got a lot of news outlets actually broadcasting this. One of them said 5,000 people. I mean, I don't know about you, but that looks like more than 5,000 people. I think the BBC said 5,000 people on the street. So let's have a look at what's actually taking place here. In fact, that says 10,000, tens of thousands. So this is all in regards to the operation that took place where they tried to actually free some of the Israeli captives held by Hamas. And well, let's just say that it wasn't very successful, and that those 6 people were killed just before the security forces got to them. So what's actually going on now is there's this massive call over in Israel to for a ceasefire and to sort of figure out a solution to this now. But there's been a lot of trouble over this. There's been fights breaking out between the protesters and the security forces. This took place last night. I mean, this is a pretty big deal, what is happening over there. And the protesters chanted now, now, and demanded that the Israeli Prime Minister reach a ceasefire with the Palestinian group. So this is what we've got. We've got this big changing dynamic going on at the moment. Israelis blocked roads in Tel Aviv and demonstrated outside of Netanyahu's office in Western Jerusalem here. In a statement, the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, which represents the families of captives held in Gaza, said the death of the 6 hostages was the direct result of Netanyahu's failure to secure a deal to halt the fighting and bring their loved ones home. They were all murdered in the last few days after surviving almost 11 months of abuse, torture, and starvation in captivity, the forum said. Take to the streets and shut down the country until everyone returns is what was posted on X. They can still be saved. Now, we'll come on to Biden and a few other things that's been said about this, because we've definitely seen now this massive changing dynamic, and we can see here as well the sort of scenes. You can see how many people are in these groups at the moment. It is enormous. This was just last night here. But let's go on to the Telegraph coverage of this then. And the Telegraph covers Netanyahu will agree ceasefire only when Israeli streets are burning. This was what one of the ministers said. The minister's claim comes as Israelis hold a general strike intended to push their prime minister to negotiate. Netanyahu will push for a deal with Hamas only when the streets are burning, an Israeli minister has said. The mass demonstration followed the killing on Saturday of 6 hostages that were taken on the October the 7th attack. But even with hundreds of thousands expected to take to the streets, a minister from Netanyahu's own party suggested peaceful protest might not be enough to shift the prime minister's position. So he's been accused of sabotaging the talks by a number of people here. And they're saying this is because there is a hard right cabinet members, or a group of them, threatening to leave his coalition should he agree to these peace talks. Some Israelis therefore believe that he is sabotaging the talks by setting demands he knows that the group will not agree to. Obviously, I'm avoiding using certain words so the video doesn't get taken down straight away, because if you're not mainstream media, you're not really supposed to talk about these things, although complete censorship, of course, on certain platforms. So Biden just did an interview where he was asked if Netanyahu is doing enough. I'm not sure we can get this.
To do more on this issue, do you think he's doing enough? No.
So it's quite clear. He said he seemed quite annoyed, and he said that Netanyahu is not doing enough, and that he's going into a meeting to come up with proposals. Now there are some peace talks ongoing. There's a proposal being put forward at the moment, and this is between a number of countries that hopefully will come up with some sort of peace talk. Now, jumping over to Ukraine war then, I wanted to bring your attention to something that we're sort of seeing over the last week now. And what have you noticed about the age of all the new recruits in this conflict from the Ukrainian side? I think you'll see when we go into the article a little bit more. One of the most striking aspects the journalist noted was the age of the new recruits. Most seem to be in their 40s and 50s. It says here, a month ago this man was a driver. Next month he could find himself fighting on Russian soil. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, I said a while ago that what will happen is with this conflict, and it will be the same in other areas as well. I mean, look at the age of this guy here, is that yes, conscription comes in and it's 18 to 40 typically, but once a lot of the younger men are already fighting, or they may have been killed, then what happens is the recruitment age changes quite dramatically, where older men, either willingly or conscripted, will get involved as well. 2.5 years into the war, and Ukraine is desperate for more troops, and brought into force a new conscription law which even lowered the age of men from 27 down to 25 now. And of course it eventually ends up at around 18 if we look at the historical context of other conflicts. Military service for women is not mandatory. It says here, this is a BBC article, so there isn't really any sort of Russian bias with this. It shows clearly most of the new recruits are older men. And we've also had this come out, Zero Hedge. Ukrainian defense minister has revealed to CNN that Zelensky government has presented a list of significant targets which lie deep inside Russia to the Biden White House for approval to strike. His words in the new interview come as Kyiv is engaged in intensive lobbying with Washington to get Biden to greenlight the use of US missiles for longer range attacks. Ukraine has also been begging to receive long-range missiles towards that end. Now, if you are American, I know I've got a lot of American subscribers, will you drop in the comments what your thoughts are on this? Do you agree to this? Do you think it's a bad idea, and why? That's when they've specified that the White House has been provided a list of desirable targets deep inside Russian territory. CNN says that the Biden admin is actively mulling the lifting of all of the restrictions as have been requested. Zelensky is hoping that as a result, the West can be convinced that there's nothing to worry about in terms of escalation. So they're talking about this red line here. So Zelensky really wants to test this red line with Putin to see if he really does launch anything like a tactical nuke, which is a smaller weapon on troops, etc. So that's what they're really doing with this exercise, I personally believe. At this point in the war, Ukraine has been sending weekly and near daily drone strikes against Russia, targeting specifically oil depots and energy facilities. Several more have been reported struck and damaged just yesterday, including sites in the Moscow region. And we can see this footage here, courtesy of X. If you focus on this area here, you will see another explosion. And also a number of these what's known as kamikaze UAVs were launched over the central regions of Russia. Now, there's a lot of talk about these, let's see if we can get onto it in a moment. There's a lot of talk about these actual drones as to what is being used, and some of it is more accurate than others. Some of these drones are absolutely enormous, huge drones worth millions, but then others of them are just, very, very small. They are one-way drones, so it's important to distinguish between what is being used here. But with these expanded cross-border strikes into Russia growing more bolder, and given the White House may openly come out and start supporting this, many analysts are waiting for Putin to exact revenge in a major way, which sends a strong message that he is in fact willing to act on his red lines. Well, actually, do we really want this to take place? Drop in the comments. I think we know. It's perhaps only a matter of time for such a massive new escalation from Moscow. This could include directly targeting the Ukrainian capital in a shock and awe way, or possibly even a hit on the parliament or government buildings, which of course would move this in a completely new direction. Now, we also had this out from Statista today, talking about China expanding their nuclear arsenal. They've expanded by the most in the last year by 90. Russia's reduced, interestingly enough, by 109, and North Korea has also increased by 20, as has India. Now, I was looking on the map as to where a lot of these are stationed around Europe, and we can see quite clearly here, this is updated as of this year. The yellow shows the US weapons with their atomic bombs and combat aircraft here. The blue is French, and then the red is the British. I thought this was interesting as well to bring you up to speed on what I talked about with the AfD party in Germany. And I said, I think we're going to get a shock win from them, especially what happened in the region with the attack at the Diversity Festival, of all things, the irony of that statement alone. And this is what's just happened. Now, I want to bring your attention to how the media is covering this. So this is being covered by Remix, saying, backed by youth and working class, the AfD wins big in German state elections while far-left government crashes. Now, notice him here with his hands down like this. The Telegraph phrased it completely different. German far-right to win first state election since Nazi era. And if you notice the hand gesture here, which they're calling a salute, rather interestingly. Let's come back to this a moment then. The regional elections in the German states of Saxony brought the expected major advance of the right-wing Alternative for Germany, AfD, coupled with a significant result for the left-wing breakaway party, which is the BSW. Meanwhile, the Chancellor's SPD suffered a crushing defeat, as did the government's coalition partners, the Greens and the Free Democrats, the FDP. So they actually won with a clear lead, 33%. The CDU placed second with 24% and BSW with 14%. So the Greens and the FDP were both kicked out of Parliament entirely. So the AfD won due to the blue-collar voters and the youth, which is exactly what we talked about and what we expected to occur, winning nearly half of the working class vote in both states. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think people have swung so hard over and have started voting for the AfD? And we've seen this a lot throughout history as well. It also received the most votes from the youth in both states, scoring 37%. However, it fell short with pensioners, with the CDU outperforming in that group. Now, if we go over to the Telegraph article then, which is very anti the AfD, of course, they are calling them, well, they're referring to them all the time with the Nazi era here. Exit polls predicted the AfD gained some 33% of the vote. Also, the Christian Democrat CDU party were around 23%. However, the CDU ruled out a coalition on Sunday evening, meaning the AfD was locked out of power. Again, something that we expected to take place there. If these two ever came together, though, these two parties, that would be a real game changer for Germany. So they've ruled them out as definitely right-wing extremists by the German Domestic Intelligence Agency. That's, of course, their opinion. News magazine Der Spiegel has called the AfD the dominant force in Eastern Germany, noting that it could also win the upcoming election in 3 weeks' time in Brandenburg. And just on the elections then, for those of you following what's happening with the US election, I think it's going to be extremely exciting. We have just 63 days left. I think this is going to be probably one of the most explosive election campaigns we've seen in a long time. It's going to be a very, very interesting election indeed. I'm really looking forward to it, of course. But that is you up to date today. Thank you so much for being a subscriber here and being online. Apart from that, take care, God bless, and I'll see you next time.